Hello and welcome to the show. In today's video, we're diving into the world of politics to uncover the most powerful and dangerous politicians on the global stage right now. Now, you might be thinking, isn't that a bit heavy for a Tuesday? And to that, I say, have you looked outside recently? Every day feels like a Tuesday on bad acid right now. Look, the truth is, power is a tricky thing. In the right hands, it can build bridges, solve problems, maybe even get you a decent parking spot on a Wednesday. But in the wrong hands, well, it can be downright terrifying. And unfortunately, some of the people currently holding the reins of global power, let's just say, they make me want to invest in a very sturdy bunker. So buckle up as we take a trip around the world, examining the figures whose influence carries the weight of millions of lives, for better or, let's be honest, often for worse. Stay tuned to find out who made the list and why. Spoiler alert, it involves a lot of frowning men in very expensive suits. All right, let's start with a man who needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway because that's how this show works. Vladimir Putin, the former KGB agent who's been running Russia like his own personal dacha for over 2 decades. And by running, I mean aggressively rearranging the furniture while blasting very loud poker music. Now, you might be asking, why is Putin so dangerous? Well, aside from the fact that he seems to have a personal vendetta against anyone with a functioning moral compass, the man has a bit of a penchant for, shall we say, disagreeing with his neighbors. And by disagreeing, I mean rolling tanks across their borders while the rest of the world watches in horrified fascination. Let's not forget his uncanny ability to silence dissent with the grace and subtlety of a bear trap closing on a particularly noisy squirrel. Free press? Not on his watch. Political opposition? See previous answer, but replace bear trap with a suspicious amount of polonium in your tea. But here's the thing about Putin. He's not just dangerous because he's ruthless, he's dangerous because he's clever. He's like a chess master who also happens to be playing poker while simultaneously rigging the roulette wheel. He understands the West's weaknesses, exploits our divisions and uses propaganda like a weapon, all while maintaining a face that could curdle milk at 50 paces. So yeah, Putin's bad news. But the really scary part, he seems to be getting better at being bad news, which frankly is the kind of personal growth I could do without. Next up, we travel east to the land of delicious dumplings and increasingly concerning authoritarianism, China. At the helm of this global powerhouse is Xi Jinping, a man who, let's be honest, looks a bit like Winnie the Pooh if Winnie the Pooh had access to the nuclear codes. Now, I'm not saying that Xi Jinping spends his days dreaming of global domination and honeypots, but I am saying that he's consolidated power in a way that would make even the most ambitious Roman emperor blush. He's got his hands in everything: the economy, the military, the media, even the social credit system, which is basically like Black Mirror decided to go on a working vacation in Beijing. And let's not forget about the whole, human rights thing, the Uyghur Muslims. Facing persecution and mass detention, pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong, silenced with the efficiency of a well-placed firewall, free speech in China, about as common as a sober Irishman on St. Patrick's Day. But here's the thing, Xi's China isn't just a problem because of its human rights record, it's a problem because it's powerful, like really powerful. We're talking economic powerhouse, military might, and enough global influence to make even the most seasoned diplomat sweat through their best suit. So while the world grapples with the question of how to deal with China's growing assertiveness, one thing is clear: Xi Jinping isn't going anywhere. He's here to stay, and he's not afraid to use China's clout to get what he wants. And that, my friends, should make us all a little bit nervous. Chapter 3, Kim Jong-un, the Hermit Kingdom's heavyweight. And now for a leader who needs no introduction, primarily because he's made it very clear that he prefers to be introduced only by the dulcet tones of his own propaganda machine. Kim Jong-un, the supreme leader of North Korea, a man whose hairstyle deserves its own geopolitical strategy session. Now you might be tempted to dismiss Kim Jong-un as a comical figure, a dictator with a bad haircut and a fondness for oversized sunglasses, and while I'll admit the man does have a certain flair, it's important to remember that beneath the bluster and the bizarre photo ops lies a dangerous truth. He's got his finger on the button of a nuclear arsenal. And when I say nuclear arsenal, I don't mean some dusty Cold War relics gathering cobwebs in a bunker somewhere. No, Kim Jong-un has been busy modernizing his arsenal, testing missiles that could potentially reach the United States. It's enough to make you want to dust off that old bomb shelter in your backyard and start stocking up on canned goods. But here's the real kicker. Kim Jong-un is unpredictable. He's prone to fits of rage. He's surrounded by sycophants who are terrified to tell him no, and he operates under the assumption that the rest of the world is out to get him. That's a volatile combination, to say the least, especially when you add nuclear weapons to the mix. So while the rest of the world tries to figure out how to deal with this nuclear-armed enigma, one thing is clear. Kim Jong-un is a danger not just to his own people, but to the entire world. Chapter 4. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the Sultan of Spin. Let's shift gears now and head to a country that straddles the line between East and West Turkey. At the helm of this increasingly autocratic nation is Recep Tayyip Erdogan, a man who loves a good power grab more than a seagull loves a misplaced French fry. Once hailed as a beacon of democracy in the region, Erdogan has spent the last few years systematically dismantling the very freedoms that brought him to power. It's like watching a chef meticulously take apart a perfectly good cake, except instead of cake, it's democracy, and instead of frosting, it's the hopes and dreams of an entire nation. Erdogan's playbook is a familiar one. Crack down on dissent, silence the free press, jail your opponents, and then blame all the country's problems on shadowy external forces. It's a tale as old as time, or at least as old as autocracy, which, let's be honest, feels about the same these days. And as if domestic repression weren't enough, Erdogan has also been making waves on the international stage, throwing his weight around in the Middle East and North Africa. He's like that friend who always invites themselves to parties, then spends the entire night picking fights and hogging the karaoke machine. So while the world watches with a mixture of concern and exhaustion, Erdogan continues to consolidate his power, chipping away at the foundations of Turkish democracy. And that, my friends, is a tragedy not just for Turkey, but for anyone who believes in the power of freedom and the rule of law. Chapter 5. Mohammed bin Salman, the Prince of Paradox. And finally, we arrive in Saudi Arabia, a country that's synonymous with oil wealth, human rights abuses, and a certain crown prince who's been making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Mohammed bin Salman, or as he's affectionately known by his detractors, MBS. Now, MBS is a bit of a paradox. On the one hand, he's been praised for his attempts to modernize Saudi Arabia, allowing women to drive, investing in technology, and even talking about diversifying the economy beyond oil. It's enough to make you think, hey, maybe this guy isn't so bad after all. And then, just when you're about to give him the benefit of the doubt, he goes and does something so utterly horrific, so brazenly authoritarian, that it makes you question if you were reading his Wikipedia page upside down. Things like, I don't know, allegedly ordering the assassination and dismemberment of a journalist who dared to criticize him. Because that's the thing about MBS, he's a reformer who also happens to be a ruthless dictator. He wants to drag Saudi Arabia into the 21st century, but he's not afraid to use 16th century tactics to silence anyone who gets in his way. It's like watching a bull in a china shop. If that bull also happened to be wearing a very expensive suit and carrying a bone saw. So while the world grapples with the enigma that is MBS, one thing is clear, he's a force to be reckoned with, a man who holds immense power and isn't afraid to use it. And that, my friends, is a terrifying prospect, no matter how many flashy tech investments he makes. So there you have it, folks. 5 of the most powerful and, let's be honest, terrifying politicians in the world right now. These are the people shaping the geopolitical landscape, for better or, as we've seen, often for much, much worse. Look, I'm not saying it's all doom and gloom. There are still good people out there fighting the good fight, trying to make the world a better place. But it's important to be aware of the forces at play, the individuals who hold the fate of millions in their hands. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most pressing issues. Let us know in the comments who you think is the most powerful and dangerous politician right now.